has been described, we're trying to know whether our work is effective and whether your work is effective. And so to do that, we have established a research protocol, a research agenda through the university. And it's really dedicated to honing our practice, so honing our strategies, honing this idea of getting middle schools up and running and doing technology integration that's really responsive to the needs of young adolescents. To inform improvement beyond our partnerships. So the rest of the country wants to know about what we're doing, and so we go to conferences around the region and around the country to share what we're learning. At the heart of our data collection, what we look at and examine are interviews, observations, and surveys of both teachers and students. Typical interview with students, often we'll sit down with what we call focus groups, so a group of students, and ask them questions like, tell us how you've been using technology lately. And they will start telling stories about the kinds of stories you're hearing here, but it'll be through their lens. We might ask them, so what has been most helpful to you as a learner? And they'll describe. Maybe it's an app, maybe it's the kind of meeting that a teacher offers them. So it could be technology, it might not be technology, but we just listen to what they have to say. We typically ask them, so how can we do this better? What would you like to see more of in your classrooms with regard to technology integration? So we're asking very open-ended questions, just trying to solicit their voices about their experience. And we do much the same with teachers. The questions are very, very similar in a sense, even though they're directed at completely different classroom experiences. We also look at student data. So we want to know, for instance, whether technology integration and the changes that come from that in the school have increased attendance rates, for instance, or have they decreased or increased discipline referrals. We also want to know whether over time, this sort of data takes a lot of time to unfold, but when we look back over 4 years, was there a change in student achievement, for instance? And can we see whether that might be associated with the technology integration strategies that the school undertook? So those are the sorts of data that we are after. We think that that can help us answer the questions about what works, what doesn't work, how can we do this better. Through UVM, that's very carefully monitored research according to all sorts of federal guidelines. And it includes consent. So there's a consent process that we ask for the parents' consent, and we also, in the same form, ask for students to say, yeah, I'm ready to participate in an interview. That sounds good. We guarantee confidentiality. So at every stage of the game, we separate out the identifying information of the students and their names. And when research gets reported out, we only use pseudonyms, for instance. So we might tell the story of how Susie and Sally worked on a project together, but there's no identifying information that goes along with that story. Similarly, the achievement data, we're not particularly interested. We're not really interested in who the student was. We're interested in looking at the data set of student achievement and seeing what happened across that whole data set. So we really don't need to know the name of the student, and that's why we strip out the names when we receive the data. And implementation, we want to make sure that the whole process is going well, and so we monitor that process, and at any time, anyone can withdraw from the process. So if students try an interview and they really didn't like it, and they don't want to do it again, then they can just ask to be dropped from the study, and that's no problem. And there's also no benefits to being in the study. It's not like kids who are in the study are getting technology that other kids aren't. We don't do any of that. The one benefit, and I think it's a really cool benefit to witness, is that the kids love being able to tell us their side of the story. And so they really feel good about, they typically feel good about going to interviews because they know they're going to be able to talk about themselves as being experts about education. And they can tell us, and we really value their input, and they appreciate us valuing their input. So they tend to enjoy the interviews a lot. So we do have consent forms here, and you'll see that there is this form that asks for student assent and parent consent. The form tries to describe, we have to use this really kind of stilted language according to UVM policies. So it sounds a little funny the way it's laid out in the language, but we're certainly happy to answer any questions you have about it. But we describe basically what I just described, so in terms of the interviews, the student data, and observations. Like I said, participation is completely voluntary, and you can withdraw if, for whatever reason, you can withdraw without any prejudice, without any effect on your student's experience at school. We'll let you take these forms with you. You can look at them now, and I'm happy to answer questions. The process, what we're after, is that you'll return the form to the office, and they will gather up the forms, and we'll end up then taking the forms.
One thing I just want to emphasize with the form itself is that it's a consent form, but even if you don't wish to be part of a study, if you don't want your student, if the student doesn't want to be involved in interviews or observations, please indicate that on the form as well and return it back. Just write on it where you would sign to give consent. Just put your name and say, we do not wish to participate. And that's because if we're doing any type of classroom observations or interview focus groups or anything like that, we don't want to accidentally gather data from someone that's not part of the study. That wouldn't be in line with protocol.
We also want to make sure that you actually had a chance to decide,
right,
as opposed to it getting lost in a backpack or something like that. So it's fine to send back, just write across it, no, we don't wish to participate. That's fine, but it helps to know that that's your decision as opposed to feeling like we might want to follow up with you. Yes?
I have a question.
Yeah.
We're at the question time.
Great. I am wondering if and how you all and Mater Christi are measuring engagement in the implementation of technology in classrooms, and sort of any effect of that on engagement. You mentioned on achievement outcomes and on attendance, but I'm wondering about the engagement piece.
Well, the engagement piece, it's very difficult to measure engagement. I'll tell you some of the ways that we go about it. So one is there are various definitions of engagement. So for instance, engagement might be that there's no misbehavior in the room, or students are, looking at the teacher and listening, or apparently listening. You can't really determine whether they're listening. You can only determine whether they're looking at the teacher. We tend to be interested in more subtle definitions of engagement. So we pay attention to things like authentic engagement, which is the sort of engagement that students express being engaged in a meaningful task, a task they care about. So for instance, it would have been interesting to ask the kids about the, I'm sorry, I forgot how you described your activity with the kids. It was the
trailers.
The trailers and the declaring
The gospel.
Yes.
Proclaiming the gospel.
Proclaiming the gospel. It would have been interesting to ask the kids. We might have asked directly about that activity, but if in the course of asking them, what did you do this week, or tell us about your favorite activity, and they mention that activity, they might also say it was really cool. It felt like we were really figuring out how we were supposed to talk about our spiritual experience, and that helped. that's the sort of talk about engagement that we're looking for. So the students enjoyed the activity, they were engaged in the activity, and they saw purpose in the activity. That's the sort of authentic engagement that we're looking for. So in the course of talking to students and observing, you know, or looking at a work product like that, we can start to piece that together. As opposed to the activity where, when interviewed, the students might say, yeah, it was cool, we had to make a video, and I didn't really like it that much. So it's not really measuring per se, because we don't see a whole lot of value in measuring that particular thing. Any other questions?
This may be for Mike, but what are the future purchases for the school? Are they looking like purchasing more iPads or more software? Or
we're looking at a lot of different things. You know, it's we don't want to really have a plan laid out just because technology is updating and changing so rapidly that if we had a plan laid out in 2 years, it'd be obsolete, or even next year it'd be obsolete. So our leadership team meets, you know, every couple weeks, and we keep talking about, you know, different hardware that we need, different things. What's the frequency of the kids using the MacBooks compared to the iPads? What do the teachers feel like, you know, is the best decision to go with? Where do they see their instruction leading them towards? You know, is there something new that's going to come out next year that will, you know, have a huge educational impact? A lot of the stuff that we are looking for, you know, to adding to it, on top of, you know, that specific type of hardware like computer and stuff, is more like 3D printers, smart boards, different pieces of technology like that that can really enrich different areas that we don't have, you know, and that's cutting edge, and that's kind of, you know, not going to go anywhere for a while, but is really kind of leading into some different areas where we can explore some more stuff. So.
I'll just add, in terms of the research piece, that all of the folks on our staff and any of the folks who might end up engaging your students or your children, we're all former middle school educators. We've all gone through our full middle school teacher preparation, and we are all committed to this kind of middle school perspective. You know, so we live middle school students. So I want you to appreciate that, only because we're not coming with lab coats. You know, these kids are the kids we've spent our careers with.
Is there any other questions or comments or?
Feel
Thank you.
free
I
to
just wanna say thank you.
feel free to contact us directly as well. Everyone here has my phone number. But really, email, call, anything like that, and we're right there. So.
I'm pretty sure it's my contact information at the bottom.
Yep. Yours is on there.
Is it?
is this for 6th, 7th, and 8th grade students, or 5th as well?
Great question. I am gonna say 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th. Yep. And if you are a 5th grade parent, just remember your child will be in 6th grade next year.
God willing.
So I'm gonna go ahead and take the lead and say 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th.
Yeah. No,
Thanks.
It actually is, it's our director's name for the contact information. I'm happy to share with you my information, or she works with us closely and she'd be happy to forward it on to us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And as parents, like you saw us videoing, please spread the word that this video is available, so for information for the folks that couldn't be here tonight.
Are we gonna post it on the website?
Yes. Yeah.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.